Welcome to 19 Miles, the podcast dedicated to propelling you 19 miles forward. I'm Stella, your host, and each week we deep dive into powerful stories, my unsolicited advice, and how you can overcome adversity and unlock your true potential. Hello, you guys. Welcome back to another episode of 19 Miles. I am so excited, as per usual, for this week's episode. This week's episode is all about investing in you, which is, to my surprise, one of my most highly requested topics or things that I get asked about, which I forget that I've already done all this in work in investing in myself to get to where I am and it to be the norm. But I do remember when the term was quite new to me, hearing people that I looked up to talk about investing in themselves and what that looked like and why would we do it. So I'm going to get into all of that, break it all down, and but before we get into this week's episode, let's do a quick weekly recap because it has been a big week. So my best has been the challenge launching. If you've been living under a rock, what are you doing? I have designed my first free challenge, which has been so fun and the response has been so good. It just makes me so happy to be building a community of like-minded girls and people that can support each other. So the challenge is called Choose Your Hard. If you've not joined, I'll leave a link in the show notes for you to join. And it's all free. It's 22 days of choosing your hard. And if you want to know more, listen to last week's episode. Well, it actually came out this week. But that's been my best. My worst has been trying to manage stress. I definitely go through periods in life where I struggle to manage it a lot more than other periods in my life. I think it just comes down to where I'm at in my cycle, but definitely noticing the lack of female support and love now that I'm living in another country. And I mentioned in the last episode that I was feeling homesick and just missing my family and the girls and all of that. So I guess just really unpacking and sifting through those emotions and figuring out what it is that I'm missing. And it is that, like, I obviously have Big Daddy. If you did not listen to the last few episodes, Big Daddy is my boyfriend. That's code name. Obviously love him and he is so supportive, but his role is to protect. Boys are very they just want an answer and a quick, just to fix things, which obviously love that about him. But I think at the minute I just need somebody to listen and be like, poor you, just give me that empathy and, but my new perspective on that is, I'm grateful that we have technology and that I can pick up the phone and call mum or call my girlfriends and still receive that support. So with that said, let's get straight into this week's episode. First of all, why is investing in yourself important? We're going to break this down into two categories. Firstly, personal growth, and secondly, professional development. So underneath personal growth, it is important to invest in yourself for your self-awareness, recognizing where your strengths and weaknesses lie and your values and ability to reflect on these things. Next is your emotional and mental well-being. So investing in yourself allows you to manage stress better, manage your mental health better. It helps you develop resilience, emotional intelligence, and emotional awareness. In that professional development category, investing in yourself will reflect in your career, your skills, your knowledge, and how you stay up to date within your job role. And if you're an entrepreneur, it is quite literally essential that you invest in yourself to build a strong foundation in your business and to continue to learn and adapt. Obviously, things are constantly changing and there's new ways of doing things. And I guess for the sake of your life satisfaction and fulfillment, investing in yourself will create that better sense of purpose, direction, and improve the relationships and connection you build with others. So Now that we know why investing in yourself is important, what are practical ways to invest in yourself? So, firstly, we've got education and learning. So, this is one of the elements that I've actually included in the Choose Your Hard challenge. One of the habits is to incorporate 10 minutes of education every single day. So, this is actually something that Big Daddy got me onto. I can't take myself seriously when I say that. It sounds so normal when I say it to him because it's just like become this normal joke. But you guys are probably hearing this like, what is this kinky bitch talking about? But this is something I've adopted from him, which I love. It is so important to learn and grow and continue to, like, if you care about where your goals and where you want to go in life, including or making sure that you're staying educated and learning and adapting to certain approaches and all of that is so important. And that's why I included it in the Choose Your Hard challenge, because it's so easy to go through days and forget to continue to exercise our brain, if you know what I mean. So there's so many easy ways to do this. One of these practical ways of investing in yourself when it comes to education and learning, I've mentioned this on my social media before. Getting a coach was the most pivotal point in my self-development and me growing and all of that. I could not recommend it enough if I tried. Those first 3 months that I started with a coach, I swear I grew more in 3 months than I had in the past 4 years. Like, it was insane. So I couldn't recommend doing that enough. If working with a coach is something that you're interested in, but you're still on the fence and you're not sure, you've got questions or whatever, I do offer free 30-minute calls to go over those questions and see if we are an aligned fit or whatever. So I'll leave that link in the show notes as well if you're interested in doing that. Next thing I would recommend is courses, webinars, workshops, podcasts, books, seminars. All of that kind of stuff is all going to expand your education and your learning and ultimately be that investment in yourself. Next is skill development. So this can come down to professional and your personal life. So communication skills, leadership, project management, time management, your creativity. These are all things that if you set aside the time are investments in yourself. And I think this is something that I often forget as well, is that creativity side of things. So allowing yourself, and especially when it comes to like embracing your feminine energy, allowing yourself to step in your creative is allowing you to embrace your feminine energy, which is so important if you want to be, I guess, being your most authentic and real self and showing up as her is allowing that time or setting aside that time for you to be in your creative. And ultimately that is an investment in yourself. But it's so easy to forget that because, I mean, I don't know about you, but I often feel guilty for we've been programmed that we have to hustle to be productive. But sometimes being productive is just resting and allowing yourself to be in a creative flow state, or do those things that are for you. That is just as productive. And again, investing in yourself is the best investment you can possibly make. Next is health and wellness. We obviously hear me talk about this so much. Exercise was my first love. Exercising, eating a balanced diet, self-care routines, meditation. Again, I've put this in the Choose Your Hard challenge, is meditating. It will make the biggest difference to the way that you manage stress. I go into it all in the last episode on why meditation is beneficial and important to incorporating in your routine. So if you want to listen to that, go back and listen to last week's episode. But meditation is an amazing one, and practicing mindfulness. Next little topic is networking and relationships. So this is, again, one of those things that I often forget is actually an investment in myself. And I sometimes feel guilty for socializing, but ultimately it all comes down to living that balanced life. And it is important that you incorporate networking and nurturing those relationships. So attending networking events, building and maintaining meaningful relationships that actually add value to your life. This is honestly so huge. Part of investing in yourself means having standards, right? Which means we have to actually have consequences to when those standards or our boundaries are disrespected. It's one thing to invest in the people around you when they're adding to your life and adding value to you, but what happens if they're taking away from your life? What do you think that that's going to look like when it's compounded over time? It's not good. And I've learnt that the hard way time and time and time again in allowing people to walk all over my boundaries and not respect where my standards, or not even that they don't respect where my standards are at, but they just don't have the capacity to meet me at where I'm at. So that is something that I can go into in another episode if you guys want. Let me know. We can go very deep into standards and boundaries, but yeah, ultimately investing in relationships or connections that are adding value to your life and not taking away from you is compounded over time, be the best investment in yourself. Other little things that we can do is setting goals. Traveling is a huge investment in yourself, like the memories and the happiness that that's going to bring to your life is huge. Journaling, and also starting a side hustle, because that allows you to feel like you've got more of a sense of purpose or fulfillment outside of maybe a 9-to-5 job. Okay, now that we know practical ways to invest in ourselves, I want to share with you guys my experience investing in myself and the effect that this had on my life. So I've always been quite into self-development and investing in myself. I started training at the gym at 14 years old. It's actually been 10 years this year. How crazy is that? I find it so funny that when people ask me like, oh, how long have you been training in a gym to look like this? And I have to like step back and think, oh my gosh, like it's been 10 years. This is not, if you're chasing, I'm derailing right now, but anyway, if you're chasing a physique or a body, know that a lot of the people that you're turning to, yeah, maybe they started their fitness journey later on in life, but ultimately for them to sustain that physique or the way that they look, they've turned it into a lifestyle. So I don't know, just something to remember when it comes to gym and that kind of thing. But yeah, circling back. So I've always been very much interested in investing in myself. I just didn't always put that label on it. So that was where my self-development, I guess, journey started. And then it then progressed with stepping outside my comfort zone and developing those new skills. Do you know what's so funny? Here's a little story. So I remember one of my first jobs, I was working in an ice cream shop and I was so nervous and anxious to talk to anybody. I actually got so scared at even saying like, hi, how are you, when somebody new, like a customer came into the shop and to serve them. And I remember setting myself goals where I literally had to be like, hey, how are you? And to overcome the fear of just saying that was so hard, but I would set myself these little goals. And I remember eventually it got to, I would go on a morning walk and I'd kind of just always have my head down. To be fair, I'm still kind of like that. I like to stick to my own and keep to myself, but I remember when I was trying to develop my confidence and become a more confident version of myself, when I was going for a walk, one of the goals I would set myself is to smile at everyone. And then the next step was look up at each person and say like, hey, how are you? Or morning, how are you? Morning, have a good day, that kind of thing. So that started at, again, a very young age. I would have been 14 when I kind of started trying to develop those communication and confidence skills. And then, yeah, leadership, project management, I kind of started doing all of that within my job. I was, I guess, fortunate to be able, I mean, everybody has the opportunity to start working at a young age, but I, really started working at a very young age. The home that I grew up in, we were not in a financially abundant place. So I started working from a very young age. I was very lucky to, my granddad paid for all of my schooling. So I was fortunate to be given this high quality education in going to private schools, but I was also surrounded with so many people who had come from these wealthy families, and I felt so singled out. So I got a job really young so that I could, I guess, like fit in and have all the things that the other kids had, or if they were going to the show on the weekend, I could also go because I had to pay for everything on my own. So yeah, I developed those skills very young. My health and wellness journey started from a very young age. I obviously have touched on this on social media, but I struggled with an eating disorder. So overcoming all of that was a huge investment in myself, and I'm so proud of the progress that I've made to be the version of me and ultimately love myself. Yeah, as I mentioned before, the biggest investment I've ever made in myself, or consciously made in myself, is when I pulled in my coach. And I honestly, every single person would benefit in investing in themselves with a coach for their personal growth and their professional development. So for me, yeah, that was the biggest financial investment, but also the biggest time investment that I've made into myself. And I think that it's really important that you do make that financial investment, because it makes you take it so much more seriously. And I think something that I really struggled with overcoming was allowing myself to put that much money into myself. And why, yeah, I see a lot of clients struggle to break down that barrier of investing in themselves. But ultimately, and this is something that I've learned, is when you make that investment in yourself, it is going to flow into all other areas of your life, your friendships, your relationships, your career, the way that you see yourself, the way that you perceive the world, the way that you experience memories and just live your day-to-day life. It will transform all of those things. Moving on, tips and strategies for consistent self-investment. Firstly, as a base or ground level, set goals. If you don't have goals, you don't know where you're going. But in the same sense, you need to have systems in place. So it all starts with setting goals. You need to be realistic, but also expansive enough that it's going to push and motivate you. But I think that setting small goals to start with and seeing yourself achieve those things is going to have a positive impact, and I guess a domino effect in giving you the vision that you could, proving to yourself that you can accomplish these small goals will help you achieve those bigger goals. So start with small realistic goals, and then make sure that you're expanding yourself. You know that saying, it's like, if your goals don't scare people, they're not big enough. So that should be done. Make sure that you're doing that, not just for yourself, like your personal growth, but also your professional growth as well. Next is getting those systems in place. So create a routine. Morning routines and evening routines is one of the first investments that you should make in yourself after setting those goals. And this is it sounds so simple, but it's where so many people go wrong. Even myself, when I'm too caught up in work and I forget to prioritize that morning routine and the evening routine, I see myself just slip away. It is so important, and having somebody like a coach hold you accountable, or kind of pinpoint where those fractures are within your routine that can get help, like where we can improve and fine tune to get you to where you want to be and complement you achieving your goals. So it's obviously all good and well having goals, but if you're not setting those systems in place to achieve them, then you're not going to achieve them, or you'll be a bit lost and it'll take you so much longer to achieve them. So routines are essential to be set in place. Okay, next thing is tracking your progress. So this again is where a coach can be really amazing. They're constantly tracking your progress in your sessions and keeping track of all of those, and also mirroring back what you are saying to them. When they kind of repeat it back to you, it helps you kind of recognize, oh, like that's right, blah, 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 blah. So yeah, we all know how I feel about a coach. That will also aid in you tracking your progress. But we can also do this through journaling, photos, that kind of thing, looking back at old journal entries and seeing how far you've come in your mindset, or looking back through photos. If it comes to gym, you can see like before and afters and that kind of thing. And then the next thing that I would say is staying motivated. So you're not always going to be motivated. This is just unfortunately life. Like if we lived in a world where we were all constantly motivated, imagine things would just be done so much quicker, wouldn't they? But this is why I run my girls through an exercise that helps them to see what their reason is. On the days that they don't feel motivated, it's easy to get them back up and in that fired mindset if they can go back and see what their reason is. But yeah, it's important to find what your motivation and inspiration is and keep that visible in your life, or have it written out somewhere so that when you are feeling not motivated, you can go back and read that. Also, again, having a coach can be really good at keeping you motivated because you've committed not just to yourself but to somebody else. So you're showing up now not just for you but for them. You've invested financially into it, so you're more inclined to show up and be more motivated because you've got that person holding you accountable. And then, yeah, overcoming those obstacles and staying committed to your goals. So it can be really hard to overcome obstacles. We can have mind blocks, limiting beliefs, that kind of thing. This, again, is where a coach is going to come in really, really good. They can pinpoint where those fractures are within your mindset and help you to combat those obstacles and limiting beliefs and all of that. But making sure that when you have that limiting belief or that negative thought, like, what if this happens, or what if blah, 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 that's negative, make sure that you write it down and work through it and overcome it, because those are ultimately going to be the things that interject you achieving your goals and that investment in yourself. Okay, so recap. I've gone over why it is important to invest in yourself, the practical ways that you can invest in yourself, my experience in investing in myself, and my tips and strategies for that consistent self-investment. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this episode. It was so fun to prepare this episode for you guys. This is my bread and butter. I love self-love and self-development, and anything that is working and investing in yourself, sign me up. So I hope you've enjoyed, and yeah, I would encourage every single one of you to just start, whatever it looks like, if it's picking up a book, if it's listening to a podcast, if it's starting journaling, whatever it is, just start. It's like that saying, the only things you'll ever regret in life are the risks that you didn't take. So literally just start is all I can say. And if you need a bit of help and support, don't forget that I am doing the 22 days of Choose Your Hard challenge. It starts tomorrow. I'm going to leave it open for a week if you guys want to sign up late. I know it's only 22 days, but I think just being part of a community of girls that are like-minded and all doing it together is going to be beneficial for anybody that's wanting to start that investment in themselves and their self-development journey. So again, I'll leave the link in the show notes. And if you are somebody that's interested in starting with a coach, you've got questions, or you want to just dive straight in and start, I will also leave the link in the show notes to book that free call with myself, and we can run over any questions. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. Don't forget to follow on whichever platform you are listening on. Rate, save, download, do all the things. It really, really supports me. And yeah, thank you guys so much for all of your support so far. And I will see you in next week's episode. Bye.